Jackson Radio Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Kevin Jackson here. 48,000 felons used illegal guns in the year 2010. 44 people were prosecuted on gun charges, federal prosecution on gun charges. 44,000 criminals used guns. 44 were prosecuted. That's like the death penalty. Like we get like 24,000 people on the death penalty every year, something like that. Pardon me. And we execute less than 100. Texas is called the death penalty state because it executes, 30, 40 people a year on death row. And they call it the death penalty state. I mean, do the math and ask yourself, if you had 24,000 people that committed crimes that required capital punishment, okay, and you killed 100 every year. So 24, let me put it to you this way. More people die on death row, never having died by lethal injection or any other way, died of natural causes, than will ever be killed by the actual act of lethal injection or whatever form of death they decide. We'll never catch up. Just the way it works. So, and the people know this, but what do? We got to talk about and I'm going back to the guns. 48,000 felons used illegal guns in 2010. 44 people prosecuted on gun charges. So for all intents and purposes, guns are legal. Illegal guns are legal. If you're only prosecuting 44 of the 44,000 people who had a gun in whatever form or another, used in the commission of a crime or whatever, if you're only prosecuting 44 of them on the gun charges, aren't you condoning it? It's the same discussion we could have about immigration. Immigration, they bring over millions of people in this country, and we send back a few dozen or a few hundred or whatever it may be. We effectively let illegals do things that legal people, those that are in the system, can't do. Illegals work. They work on bogus Social Security. A person who's processing through the system legally will get a green card and work and only, they will follow the letter of the law. An illegal will do whatever. They will identity theft, you name it. And guess who the left prefers in all of this system? They prefer the illegals. I mean, I could go on. The left love their illegal things, and I've told you guys this. They love the things that create chaos. You bring over a handful of Muslims. If only one of them is bad, it creates chaos. It creates perfect example. I was riding my bike. This was before the people got run over. I was riding my bike, me and my son and everything. And I'm riding the bike, and I tell him, get on the sidewalk. I don't want you riding in the street. There's a bike path that's got the little arrow in the bike that shows, hey, and the cars know, look, don't bother people in the bike path. But I told him, let's get on the sidewalk. I want that split second, just in case, to be able to protect him. And ironically, you think that when you go for a bike ride, you just go, doody, gonna go for a bike ride. No, go for a bike ride with the idea that some nutcase could decide, for whatever reason, I'm gonna run over this family. So then less than a week later, the thing happens in New York that completely validated exactly the reason. I mean, I won't call it a premonition. Now, I wasn't anywhere close to getting run over, but call it a premonition. I just said, I don't trust anybody. I don't trust that I don't trust they're paying attention, number one. But there was a side of me that said there are people who will mow us down, and they're the bad guys, usually bearded, kind of Middle Eastern descent. But that's who I felt like, who knows? I don't know if they'll know me necessarily, but you just don't know. And that's the world that we live in. So one guy, now, when you're biking, trust me when I tell you, you're going to be thinking about this. The reason why I was thinking about it, not so much from the biking perspective, but from being mowed over, was because of the Muslim attacks around the world with vehicles. That's what made me tell my son, get off the road. You never know. And what happened? They attacked with a vehicle, mowed over these bikers, obviously killing people. And the left, they immediately start talking about Islamophobia. They even brought up guns, even though the guys had fake guns. The only guns used in the incident were the ones that brought down, where they shot the dude. But they start talking about guns. And so I was looking at the immediate cry for gun control when these types of things happen. And then I thought to myself, what does the left do almost every single time a Muslim attack occurs? They come out and they tell us, you shouldn't be blaming the Muslims, and because it's just the radical ones and all that. They never protect the gun. Never. They don't tell you, it wasn't the gun's fault. It was this idiot. There was a dude in I want to say it was China, but I'm not. I think it was China, and he killed 50-something people on the subway with a knife. You don't hear him talking about that. And it was a terror attack. You don't hear people talking about it like, man, that knife, woo, they don't care. They're ideologically wanting to get the gun, so they attack the guns. But if you say, well, then shouldn't you ideologically want to get if you're going to blame the gun, which is the implement of destruction, why aren't you blaming the Muslim as the implement of destruction when that's what's happening? You can use the same logic. I'd like to be on a TV show and ask some leftist that. How do you reconcile this? Well, the gun is an inanimate object, and it therefore, you mean you're bolstering my case? The gun can do nothing. If you sit a gun, I'm just curious, if you sit a gun in the woods, does it take a crap? So when you're talking about this inanimate object, that if it sat and left alone would do nothing, versus this animated object called the radical Muslim, who's looking for ways to kill people with suicide vests and a host of other ways. How are you reconciling one over the other? And the short answer is they can't. There is no reconciliation of this. But don't expect leftists to use logic in forming their opinions about things when there's so much, false fake news narratives that are out there that they can go out and get. It's the gun's fault. Then they want to tell you it's white men that kill, white conservative right-wingers. They're the ones that kill. Why should I dare look up the real statistics on it and find out that's not the case? Because that would ruin things for them. Oh, yeah. What else we got? I want to talk about the economy and what Donald Trump's going to be doing. I'm playing with this thing. Let me put that down before I break it. Yeah, so I want to pivot back, talk about Asia a little bit. We got to take a short break here in a bit. Faster than I thought? Oh, okay, it's coming up. All right, well, anyway, we'll talk about that and a few other human interest stories. At least they're interesting to me.
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.